You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Philippine Islands, quite visible on the centre of the image there, and as you can see, approaching from the east is that big mass of cloud that resembles Tropical Storm Rai, which has been named locally Odette. The Philippines will, pag-asa will reflect that in their upcoming first update when it enters the Philippine Area of Responsibility. Well, it just has, but their first scheduled update is on the way soon. Right now, the storm is pretty much over Palau, which I believe are under a typhoon warning, even though it isn't quite at typhoon status. It's not far away, and we do expect that it will become a typhoon soon, and it could intensify substantially on approach to the Philippine Islands, could enter through the southern Visayas region, through those islands, could be a threat for Cebu, and areas around there as it moves towards the west-northwest. Now, model output suggests that this could become a major typhoon, could get to category 3 status before landfall. And what I've noticed recently is that the most abrupt part of its intensification phase is just before it makes landfall, basically, which makes it not only unpredictable but perhaps a little bit, it could catch people out, let's say. My name is Nathan Foy here in the studio once again. It's nice to be back doing a storm update. I think it's been quite a while since we last did one. I can't quite remember when it was now. But here we are once again doing another update on this tropical cyclone, which could become obviously a serious threat. Throughout the stream this hour, we'll be able to take your questions and comments. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. But as you can see, well, some images breaking in there. There's another image right now showing the storm, and you can see Palau right underneath that mass, an enormous mass of high cloud tops, which are engulfing that island nation. I'm joined by my ever-reliable team this hour. Right now we have Kenneth, Kin and Walter. Hello to all of you.
Hello.
Now, I think I would like to speak to Kin first because you're in the Philippines, so obviously closest to this storm out of the three that we have here right now. What's going on there?
Well, the government is preparing for the storm, and seems that they are doing evacuation in parts of what's the storm's approaching with in Cebu as well.
Yep. So when we look towards the potential landfall zones, let's take a look at the JCWC forecast cone. You can see it there right now, showing the expectations for this storm to become a typhoon shortly, and could impact the islands. They're going for 100 knots just before it hits the northern tip of Mindanao. Then moving through Bohol, Cebu, Negros, and then on towards the northernmost part of Palawan, and then moving into the South China Sea. Models suggesting, as is the case with many late season storms, December storms in particular, that it might steer away from Vietnam and could completely dissipate over the South China Sea. We'll wait to see whether that happens, although they still have it intensifying there, I think. If I'm not mistaken, looking at those numbers, I think it's up to 90 knots there on that last dot as it moves northwest. So that's something to watch out for. So, Kenneth, obviously you are one of our major cyclone analysts from Hong Kong up there. Should be away from the storm, but what are your thoughts on it right now?
Okay, so firstly, I'm gonna share my screen first. So Rai is currently a severe tropical storm, which I agree with. It is currently with winds of around 65 miles per hour, 1 minute sustained. In recent frames, as you can see in this satellite, a very short satellite lift from easterly wave, you can see some very strong convection of like negative 90 degrees. It is warping up shear and covering this CD and developing a even better CDO since this afternoon when the cloud cover pattern was over after this morning. So I'm going to break it down to structure and forecast. So I'd like to talk about the structure right now. The convection blob is currently firing up shear in this direction, which the center is roughly around like here, interpolated by microwave imagery earlier on and the current convection curve. The center is currently here. I'll change to red pen here. And you can see there are quite a few more convection blobs curling around the center, which is indeed a sign of significant intensification. The core of Rai is indeed pretty small, but overall circulation is not that particularly small. But one thing that I have to note is that the tropopause is it is still under 10 north. The tropopause is still very high, which can easily generate so-called convection. So let's move on to the forecast, which here is Rai. You can see the blob here and 97W on the left side, but we're not really, we're not talking about it. It's not really significant to due to Rai. So there are currently 3 scenarios suggested by 3 different models. I'll talk about it from least likely to the most likely one. So the least likely one, I'll think, is the one that actually recurve. Okay, let's draw a line here. That is roughly 115E.
Right.
So, Rai is expected to move west to west-northwest, then rapidly intensify, and then make landfall roughly at this region, probably as a very strong typhoon.
Are you sure about that, Kenneth? Because JCWC's latest update a little bit south of where you've drawn the arrow.
It's also likely as well for more southward landfall spot, but this least likely forecast goes a bit more north because of the weaker ridging. But I'll tell later why it is such an initialization is flawed. So after crossing through Philippines, the Visayas region, it recurves like this and approaching to the northern part of South China Sea, and will bring more precipitation to the South China coast. And why I'm gonna say this is the least likely scenario currently suggested by EC. So, current synoptic charts suggest the initialization of the ridging is stronger than expected. Actually, should have been expected. Well, currently the ridging is like this.
Well, yes, it's gone south of forecast so far.
Yep. So I'll describe a more likely scenario, which is to move more west, more near the Mindanao, and then and then cross through here and then turn more northwest. But I have to note one thing, is that there is a wave of northeastern monsoon arriving off coast
Right.
on 19th of December, which is Sunday. So this northeast monsoon will continue push the region. It will continue push towards the southwest, which it will bring dry. It more likely be the case, according to many analogs of December systems, most likely west of 115E. It will suffer from dry air and wind shear, like this, and then it will just move southwest and being bashed
Yes.
by shear and dry air and dissipate quickly. And which I'll think it is a more likely scenario based on analogs and current
Which
a
storm
stronger
did that
region forecast
recently?
as suggested by GFS.
Was it Kamuri that did that? Can't remember which storm it was.
Kamuri? Let me check. Well, I mean, it's not. It's very unlikely to prove a BOFA 2.0 for the
yeah.
track after passing through the Philippines. That's really unlikely.
It's not going to be as strong
yeah.
as Bopa, that's for sure.
Yeah. And for the track wise, a more southward track of the Camry is likely. But of course, I don't think it will get that large eye. And more, and even have more potential than Camry to reach an even stronger intensity.
Could you go back to your first slide, please?
Which first slide?
The close-up of the storm.
Close up, you mean this?
Yes, I just want you to mark out Palau properly there on the map, because some people might not be able to see it properly. And just tell us about the impacts to be expected there right now.
Yeah, so Palau is currently this black spot. Here is Palau, which, if I remember correctly, earlier is recorded a pressure of 998 millibars. Let me see the surface observation.
998.
Yep. So, the data is from Palau International Airport. The lowest pressure, 74.9 altimeter. So it has a wind. Yeah. And from the reports from the Palau International Airport, there's shower rains and some strong winds. Yeah, and near gale force gusts and showers was recorded, particularly in the evening after sunset.
Okay. But now it's starting to move away, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed, it is currently moving away, but it is still producing strong winds, northwesterly, westerly, strong wind gusts. It occasionally gale maybe still, and overcast, cloudy weather, and with likely still some light shower, although it may not be that heavy showers as it was near the sunset.
Now, I've had all kinds of questions, so I'm just going to reveal a few of them. People asking about the status of its eye, whether it has one or not, whether one's developing.
So let's go to the lower level structure, shall we?
Okay.
So here is microwave imagery at 9 UTC when I should go 2 hours earlier first. Yep. Let's go to one at 7 UTC. You can see a very strong convection firing at the eastern side, which you can see there's a somewhat eye-like feature which is indeed the case. So let's start the infrared loop. You can see also very strong bursts in the infrared as well, which align with what microwave indicated. The eye-like feature is starting to develop after the CCC phase ended, which let's go to 2 hours later. You see a much more mature but still nascent eye wall structure at the lower level develop on Rai, which it's indeed a sign of intensification as forecast. And let's look for a bit. You can also see it also aligned with a very strong southeastern quadrants, a very strong convection blast, such as a microwave, which an hour later, infrared quickly revealed it, and then it rocked up shear, and then become a small but
it's quite clear to see.
mature CDO with a probably currently more mature structure than this. And I think it is very likely it will reach typhoon status before tomorrow's sunshine.
Very soon, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Do you think it could be at the next, the next ATCF update must be due now?
The 12C ATCF has it at 65 miles per hour and a pressure of 990 millibars.
Oh. Is that what they had earlier?
I think it's out or it's already out before 9 p.m.
No, I mean the 6C. What was that the same as well?
Oh, 6C.
Hold on, I'm finding.
Oh no, it was 55 knots then as well, so it stayed the same. So that's quite interesting. But they expect some significant strengthening coming up pretty soon. When we go back to the JCWC forecast cone, you can see there it expects it to go from 65 knots to 80 knots in 12 hours, then up another 10 knots, then up another 10 knots as it reaches land. Do we think that the forecast from the JCWC is sensible? Do you think it could be higher or lower, or what's more likely?
I mean, it probably is sensible, give the current trend. So it currently still has, if I remember correctly, there's still over 2 days for Rai to develop. I mean, it's currently showing signs of rapid intensification. And it is expecting at 15 knots per 12 hour in the first, 65 to 80, and then, if I remember correctly, it's a 100 knot peak, right?
Yes.
Yeah, which it means it's forecasting a roughly 2T per day, means a normal developed trend in the next 2 days, and then make landfall as a Category 3 typhoon. I mean, it's a reasonable yet not so aggressive forecast. I'll say this because the first thing is, let's go to here. The deep layer shear. The wind shear is pretty much still low to moderate currently. If we don't talk about the motion that offset the currently easterly shear, it's currently at 15 to 20 knot shear. But of course, if you subtract the movement, that's only 5 knots, I think, which is low enough for rapid intensification. But you never know when this sneaky shear we're gonna increase for a bit more, or Rai will decelerate a bit, which the shear becomes more, because as I said, Rai is a rather small system, which it is also vulnerable to the external environmental changes which can make the intensity to fluctuate, even cause Rai to struggle for a bit, which it could be less. The intensification rate is maybe less ideal as what is forecast. So JWC go with a stable weight of 1T, which is also the current model consensus set. But if things go ideal, I'm totally not ruling out it being way stronger than 100 knots, which I could say it can be category 4, 140. At 140, 145 at max, currently I'll say it thinks it's ideal.
Let's hope not.
It thinks it's ideally going, which is very concerning indeed.
All right. Walter, what are your thoughts?
I think it really depends on Rai's intensification rate. Like if Rai started to rapid intensify right now, then there is unfortunately a possibility that it may go above 130 miles per hour, which is around category 4. But still, it is still expected. Like it is not forecast. It's expected to strengthen to even a major typhoon. And there's some reactions for the Philippines public right now. You can see that the public are really concerned about this system, and I think that panic buying has started in around the cities. It is
Yeah. Now
very
earlier
concerning.
we had some comments talking about Haiyan. This is nowhere near that. Thank you very much.
No.
It's nothing compared to that.
Would be a high-end feat.
You know, Haiyan
There were-
occurred in November. This occurred in December.
There were other
It is
people
two totally
talking.
different systems.
Other people talking about comparisons to Washi, which was a tropical storm only, but delivered huge amounts of rainfall to the southern part of the Philippines and was really bad.
Yeah, that's indeed the case. Several thousands of fatalities for Washi, despite the fact that it's only a severe tropical storm. But there's the extreme amount of rainfall, because if I remember correctly, Washi moved very slowly over the Philippines, which caused that.
I don't think it was that slow. Let me just take a look at the rainfall estimates, though, for this storm right now, and yeah, it is quite significant. Certainly not the highest we've ever seen, but we're still talking about a narrow line approaching 500 millimeters through the center path of the storm, which, as of the last GFS run, would pretty much take it through Dinagat Islands, the southernmost part of Leyte, onto the northernmost tip of Bohol, through central or southern Cebu, through Negros, the southernmost tip of Panay, and onto the northernmost part of the main island of Palawan, and then out over the South China Sea. So those would be the spots for the highest rainfall, as well as possibly the strongest winds, if that model run verifies, but could be trending further south with every run, considering what's going on right now. Well, you briefly heard the voice of the phone expert earlier. I don't know if you'd like to say anything else. But it's okay if not. Let's see if we can get some comments or questions, though. In fact, there was one that just came in. When will we have 29W? Let's not think about that. This is 28W that we're looking at. Speculative model runs suggesting that there could be another typhoon right at the end in the last week of the month. But there is nothing to back that up yet. And of course, there is actually a possibility, small possibility, that 97W becomes something as well. Let's see what else we've got right now. Not a huge amount of comments just now, but you can start your message with Force 13 all in text, and it will light up for us during this discussion. No warnings from pag-asa just yet, but I expect that they'll be coming out whenever they update. When's that update coming, Kin? Do we know?
1.5 hours later.
Oh. So an hour and a half from now. That was Walter, by the way.
Yeah.
And we pretty much expect that there's going to be at least some Signal 1 warnings being put up there.
Yeah.
Other comments saying that the track is almost the same as Fanfo.
Fanfo.
This kind of reminds me of Mike. I said next intense.
Just a bit. When we consider Mike back in 1990 was extraordinarily powerful Category 5 typhoon. Weakened to, was it a 4 when it made landfall? Maybe a high-end 3. This at the moment is not yet a typhoon at all. It's a high-end tropical storm, likely to become a typhoon soon, as its internal structure looks better. Certainly when you look at the satellite imagery that we're looking at right now. This is the enhanced infrared channel, gradually moving just north of west by the looks of things there, edging close to the Philippines. Obviously it just passed over Palau and is still probably hammering them with significant rainfall. Typhoon warnings were out there. It's starting to move away there slowly. People are all talking about comparisons now. What storm is comparable? Bron wants to know, what about Typhoon Nell of 1993? I'll have to look that one up.
When this storm is strong or not, the impacts are probably going to be dangerous either way.
So Nell happened very late in the year, December 20th formation date, and it became a tropical storm, edged just north of Palau, like right now, and became a Category 1 typhoon, struck northernmost Mindanao, and then went northwest and actually struck the southernmost part of Mindoro, and then gradually meandered towards the southwest. This one will be taking a more direct track than that, but it is possible that it will sink further south like Nell did initially before its Philippine landfall. Are December typhoons common? They're not rare. I mean, I'm not sure if I've got any concrete data on that because I've been building databases and all kinds of things. I don't think I've got things for month of the year, but we've seen December storms quite a few times. I mean, when was the last one?
The answer?
Well, of course, this year. But the significant ones for the Philippines, I mean, Nok 10 in 2016 was a Category 5. Hagapit in 2014 was a Category 5. Bopa in 2012 was a Category 5. So those 3 in the last decade that not only formed, but
Wait,
actually
what
got
about
to
Rebel?
Category 5, and that was in December, all 3. What was that?
Palau wasn't a Cat 5, but it was still a significant December typhoon.
Who?
Mellor of
Mellor.
2015.
That was a Category 4, wasn't it?
Yes, but it was still significant.
Absolutely, yep. Rolled across the northernmost part of Samar as a high-end Category 3 or 4, and then moved through towards Mindoro. Remember it well, we tracked that for hours on end on Force 13 Live. That was the first major Philippine storm that we did do coverage on live. Obviously this one much further south than Melor was. Now, more questions. What is the worst case scenario for Rai in terms of intensity? I think Kenneth read that out earlier, spelled it out earlier, saying that it would probably get to 140 or 145 at a worst case scenario. Indeed, Kenneth, right now the most aggressive model would be the HWRF.
Yeah, it is indeed the HWRF.
As always.
So let's not talk about its weird wind pressure relationship, but the deepest pressure at the 6Z run has right at 927 millibars, which if I convert it
Good Lord.
according to its own data, it's like
Well, let's just
near
say that's
category
ridiculous.
5. If I just talk about the pressure, we don't see the winds. We just see, okay, deepest pressure 927. That translates to near category 5.
Well, that's great to know.
Yeah.
Interesting that the CTCX doesn't go quite as high as that, though, because usually they're quite optimistic as well. They're going with high-end category 3 there.
Are they?
Just looking through some other things as well. Some people may be relieved to know that the latest CHP6 model only calls for a minimal category 3. So maybe there's some interesting words to have regarding that, considering that is supposedly the best case scenario for the storm or worst case scenario for people.
Well, I don't practically know how it works, but if the CHP6 really did go for Cat 3, that would be a good thing, actually.
It certainly would. CHP6 is basically worst case scenario, assuming no shear. So it'd be interesting to see how the HWRF managed to manufacture a category 4 out of that compared to that. Anyway, here's once again the water vapor imagery of the storm, and you can just see how much is packed into the central core there. Over Palau and points north and northwest.
Nathan, do you want to look at some models?
Well, we've seen some already, but anything that we've not picked up on?
You can look at the GFS model if you like.
We can have a detailed look at that, yeah.
Hold on. So, GFS.
Okay.
Here, alright. So the GFS has trying to and we strike, and they forecast the peak pressure at 948 millibars before striking the Philippines at 950, and then move out to sea and may strengthen a little bit further until it sort of dies.
And it does completely. That's the recurve one that Kenneth says is unlikely.
Yep. It's just being struck down to southwest and killed by dry and shear because of the approaching northeast monsoon from the north.
However, the HWRF has a worse decision.
Yeah, even worse.
The 927.
Notably further north there.
And yeah. Two, that leaving the Philippines at below 950 actually, and it didn't stop. It decided to go more west and
Oh.
may. There is a slight recurve at the end of the forecast.
Certainly in the realm of probability there as well.
Mhm. There is a chance the HWAC predicts that it may hit Vietnam, but I think that's not likely.
Now let's just
Because of,
compare notes there. The Philippine landfall, if you could go back to that, is on central Leyte. What position north is that? That's around
10.7 to 8.
10.7 or 8 degrees north. Right, so I think I've found the discrepancy with the CHP6 and the HWRF, because HWRF takes it much further north. CHP6 has that category 3 peak at 9.5 north. So it would suggest that if the storm stayed below 10 north, it would only just reach major status. But if it manages to curve a little bit further north towards central Leyte or southern Samar even, then you could be looking at category 4.
And for the information, the GFS did say a 10.5 north landfall, and the HWAF said a 10.7 north actually, 837. So I guess the trend is like, if the storm goes more north, it will be stronger, I guess. Yeah. And the ECMWF.
Okay.
Actually, they think that it will be much stronger in the South China Sea rather than in the Philippines, judging that the pink
Not impossible.
circles. I have no idea, Kenneth.
Not impossible.
Not impossible. Yeah.
Wow, that secondary peak, the South China Sea. Well, I think it is pretty much a likely case, regardless of which few scenarios I'm talking about. Either recurve being struck by northeast monsoon, it's likely that there is some reintensification, because the northeast monsoon aren't going to go down that quick. It is virtually certain it's after Sunday. So reintensification is there is space for reintensification, but regarding to the further north, a stronger intensity. Well, although models suggest such a trend from various models, based on the sheer amount, because the main hindering factor is shear, and not the intensification time, I doubt there will be much of a difference, regardless of landfall position, due to the peak intensity and landfall intensity of Rai to the Philippines.
And fascinating outlier there as well. That's a bit nuts. But anyway, that is the... Was that the ECMWF ensemble? I think it was. Keep sending in your messages. Start your message with Force 13 all in text, and it will light up for us. We'll be able to get onto your questions and comments. Now, obviously, this is Tropical Storm Rai, international name. It will also be named Odette, or has been named Odette, by the
It has been
Philippines.
named.
Has been named Odette.
And they'll have their first update on that. I think you said in an hour, just over an hour. So we won't be there for that, unfortunately. But we imagine that there will be the first warnings that will come into effect for that when that occurs. Latest imagery once again. This is 1 minute, not 1 minute, the 2.5 minute rapid scan from Himawari 8, showing the progression of the storm. Looks to be expanding a little bit in those latest frames. Cloud tops still very high indeed. Let's just check how high they are right now, just taking a look on my own screen at the latest images. The highest point of those cloud tops look to be around the 90-degree mark. It's not giving me a readout, so I'm just dead reckoning that. But it looks like around minus 90 degrees, maybe a little bit more. Not as high as it was earlier, but then the aerial coverage of the minus 80s has doubled in the last 2 hours, so that is probably reason enough for that to be the case.
Yeah, that's indeed the case, and normally a very cold fire convection will expand, warmer slightly, and that's what called firing up shear, and it's the convection block is rocking anti-clockwise right now, and yeah, I see signs of maybe attempting to opening an eye.
I'm seeing it. I'm seeing that. Yes. Interesting.
Yeah, and the center right now is roughly 8.5 north, 134 east, and that probably is currently where the center is. And yeah, if I'm not mistaken, based on the curling of the convection and the center position, it may be really attempting to open
There
an
it is.
eye.
Definitely see the area that we're talking about there, curving round. I don't know, Kenneth. Still looks a bit messy, but it could well be.
Yeah, I mean, it just after an even messier stage. You're talking about last night. It's just a very messy cold blob sustaining. And right now it's already more organized, but of course it needs to be more organized as it continue to rob up shear and rob better to get a better symmetry. And it probably will get more symmetric. I think tomorrow daytime is probably the case. I mean, currently it's still very oval egg in shape of the convection globsa, the shape of it. But it indeed will gets better as it continues to intensify significantly.
So if you've just joined us on this live update on Tropical Storm Rai, it is still short of typhoon status at 65 miles per hour according to the latest ATCF readout. We expect it will become a typhoon fairly soon, in the next 12 hours probably, maybe even 6 hours now. JCWC forecasting a major typhoon peak at 115 miles per hour. That's around 185 kilometers per hour sustained. That's category 3 status. And then landfall in the Philippines. We've pretty much deduced from model outputs that a further north landfall would be stronger than a further south landfall. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. The landfall area, you're probably looking anywhere from the southern tip of Samar to probably the province of Surigao south. And then it will push towards the west-northwest and retain typhoon intensity all the way through there into the South China Sea, where it was, according to JCWC, will reach a secondary peak of 105 miles per hour, 170 kilometers per hour. And then who knows what will happen after that. Also, huge wind field after it passes through the Philippines there, which is interesting to note. And a sizable wind field on the way in, which in fact, just now I've noticed that the JCWC have that wind field expanding by more than double in the next 12 hours, Kenneth. What do you make of that?
That may depend on how the bands, I think, in the north will do to the wind field of the system. I've noticed that models also expecting expand of wind fields. That may be due to just forecast, I would say. But if just looking at a satellite imagery, it can't really tell currently. But based on models forecast, it's pretty much the case, which I hope I can figure out how did it happen based on satellite appearance in the next few hours. But if you say it's gonna further expand the way the gale radius expand way more at the South China Sea, I already can tell why. Instead, because of the northeast monsoon, with the addition effect or multiplication effect, because of the northeast monsoon and Rai, the winds will further strengthen, and the gale radius will also expand very significantly, just like any other system that has some distance to the northeast monsoon, but still have some interaction with it, which this such a phenomenon will occur. But of course, if any storm go too close to the northeast monsoon, of course it ain't getting a good result.
ADT readouts right now, 55, 57 knots. Is that something we agree with?
Well, based on satellite estimate of 55 to 60 knots, 1 minute sustain is a yes. Around 55 to 50, 55 to 60. Latest ADT reading, CI 3.6, 57 knots. But the raw T currently is, I'm aware, is increasing to 3.9. Very close to typhoon status.
Yes, interesting.
I'll say it probably is a typhoon. Will be a typhoon at 18Z, I'll say.
I think we've got Moon on the line now as well.
Yeah.
Otherwise known as Zenitsu. Is there anything you want? I'm just giving you the opportunity to speak, really, because I know you've been on here and listening in for a while. Obviously, you're in the Philippines ahead of this storm. What are your thoughts?
Well, Nathan, this storm is, it's intensifying, and it's a really bad sign for the people that are living there, especially with the JCWC forecasting a major typhoon right before landfall. To add to the preparations that local government in the Philippines are doing, the governor of Cebu has issued a memorandum to all mayors to take all necessary precautions for the arrival of this system. And at 11 p.m., we may see the first signal warnings. Expected to be around Eastern Visayas.
Well, I think we
and
surely will.
Yeah, at 11 p.m., which is yeah. I think we have a new cone from the JTWC.
Ah,
I think it's in live output.
once we get hold of it, I don't think that's the new one there. It might take a little while to update at this end. But we'll watch this graphic and we'll see if that updates anytime soon. Hopefully whilst we're on the air, so we can show you the latest from them. I'll see if I can get it on my own little Oh, you've got it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so new cone there.
They actually
And
depicted the track more north after entering the South China Sea.
oh, look at that. They've got the second peak stronger than the first peak now.
Okay, so they have the storm landfalling in Leyte.
Yes, they've moved the track north. They've actually weakened it. And have the second peak quite a bit stronger than the first peak.
There's also a larger wind threat for areas in Luzon.
That is an enormous wind field that they've depicted after it moves in the South China Sea.
I still don't think it is a more likely case, to be honest.
They've
This
also
I know
affected
that shear may increase slightly, which the impact to a small core system can fluctuate. But if you're gonna tell me there'll be a significantly stronger second peak and the track is pushed further north, which means it will interact with the northeast monsoon sooner. And not on the 19th, it's gonna curve further north. I really doubt if a southward moving north monsoon will give extra outflow, significantly extra outflow for another wave of very resounding deepening.
I really don't know what to make of
Into the
that.
system. I doubt it, to be honest. I mean,
or
I say that it's very likely there will be deepening, but stronger than the first peak, and doesn't sound so good to me. It doesn't sound it is a reasonable one, in my opinion.
Alright, but the JCWC on that latest update, 95 knots at the Leyte landfall on the central part of the island now. That's 95 knots, 110 miles per hour, that's around 175 kilometers per hour there, sustained winds. Then weakens a little, and then according to JCWC on that second last dot there, 105 knots, which is 120 miles per hour, category 3, out in the South China Sea. Kenneth, in the last 6 hours there, that fixed that point there, it's pretty much northwest movement.
Well, that's just a bit of west-northwest movement. It is. It's currently still rather expected. Maybe I'll share something as well. Wait a little bit of a minute. Screen share.
We'll get
3,
some
2,
more
1,
imagery.
go. So here's the upper level wind. I mean, a very basic rule of thumb of a weather forecast, of the weather system forecast, is that you have of the 500 millibar wind. You have a mid-high level wind. You have and you'll get the surface weather system movement, and you can see it's pretty much northwesterly, 20 to 25 knots currently. A bit faster earlier actually. So it translates to around 10 knots northwest in recent movement. But some time ago, like 3 to 6 hours ago, it's like 30 knots west northwest that the steering is pushing it to. So it is the northwest movement is foreseeable in this map, but I mean it is I also expect the landfall position actually more likely in the Visayas than in Mindanao. I'll agree. But it's also should be noted that the movement should not be changed so much. Although she is indeed some kind of uncertainty,
Okay.
which we hope it didn't that the shear will play a more significant role, which it based on that. Shear maybe increasing a bit in the next 12 to 24 hours, I think. In the next 12 hours at least. And then followed by a decrease and the near land more rapid intensification is also likely.
Interesting. Looking back at the current infrared imagery, and you can see how that convection has been blowing up in the last few hours and starting to rotate a little bit better. Sometimes when we show you the infrared channel, this one, you can see that rotation much better on that infrared, the dark colors there wrapping round, starting to look like a possible eye feature appearing. Maybe, we're not really sure.
Oh, it's a very well. I'll say it's fairly certain already. There's another new convection block attempting to pop out at the southeastern quadrant again, which along with the one starting to rotate and currently at the northwestern side of the system. It is likely that with these two blobs rotating, we will see an eye feature rather soon. By the way, Nathan, do we have any CTPS forecast of Rai?
I haven't calculated anything. I can try and do that whilst I'm on the air here as we approach that. We're using the JCWC data, obviously. I'll see what I can come up with whilst we continue to look at your screen. And it's not working for me right now. But we'll get there in a bit.
Well, at least we're very sure that this storm is really expected to intensify and may become a significant threat to the central Philippine region, including the Cebu and the surrounding area. So if you live around the area, you should really consider on preparing on the arrival of this storm. And
in all
yes,
likelihood, this is a CDPS stage 6.
oh god,
That's wrong.
Wow, wow.
I sent some impact photos in Palau in live discussion.
oh,
I don't know if either of you could show that for us, because I'm unable to grab that here.
hold on. It's on my screen now.
Ah. So that's an image from Palau. Fallen tree branches, obviously.
Ooh, weird. Very
Pretty
expected
mild
scenes,
damage.
considering this is a high-end tropical storm. Trees may be felt. The island, yeah, and some damages in the rooftops of someone's home, I guess.
So there's some pictures just now that have reached us. But that pretty much concludes our stream for this evening. Obviously, local time in the Philippines. I think we're going to be back again probably in the morning. We will either have a live stream or a video update at midnight UTC, which is 8 a.m. Philippine time on Wednesday. And then most likely we'll have another live event at a similar time tomorrow as we ramp up our coverage on Tropical Storm Rai. Thanks very much to Philippine name Odette. Thanks very much to the team for taking part in the last hour. Hopefully we've answered a lot of your questions. And of course you can stay up to date on our social platforms on Facebook and Twitter, and of course on our YouTube channel. Force 13 all in text will get you there. And you can join our Discord server for real-time chat with our community, discord.gg/Force13. But from now, from the studio and from our team, that's it. Have a good night in the Philippines. We'll be back again with more coverage later on.